She told me I wasn't good enough the night before her wedding. Standing in the pouring rain, I watched Clarinda slip the engagement ring I gave her off her finger, like it meant nothing. Her voice didn't tremble, her eyes didn't blink. Dwayne, I can't marry a man who can't even afford a decent pair of shoes. Kenneth can give me a real life. You can't even give me shelter from this rain. And then she left. I stood there like a fool, my second-hand coat soaked, the cheap bouquet, in my hand sagging with water. I didn't chase her. Not this time. 3 years ago, I thought love was enough. I worked 3 jobs to pay her mother's hospital bills. I missed meals so she could eat. I pawned my father's watch just to buy her a birthday dress she'd glance at once and forget. But to her, none of it mattered. Love wasn't enough. Money was, and Kenneth had plenty of it. What she didn't know was that the night she walked away, I didn't just lose her. I lost everything. The apartment, the job, the little dignity I had left. But I didn't die in that rain. I disappeared, and when I came back, I didn't come back as a beggar. Today, Clarinda is getting married in the grandest hotel in the city. The news says it's a dream wedding. White orchids, imported champagne, the entire elite circle attending. She thinks she's marrying the richest man in the room. She doesn't know the real billionaire just RSVP'd, and he's not sitting in the crowd. He's standing at the altar, waiting for his bride, waiting to return what was once thrown away, with interest. My name is Dwayne Carter. 3 years ago, I was a man who believed that if you gave everything to someone, they'd stay. I believed loyalty was louder than wealth, that love could survive on effort alone. That belief cost me everything. Clarinda and I had been together for 4 years. I met her during my final year of college when I was hustling at a roadside coffee stall to pay for my tuition. She walked up in a soft pink dress, ordered a cappuccino, and smiled at me like she already knew I'd fall for her. And I did. I fell hard. She wasn't just beautiful, she was bright, full of ambition, with dreams. Big enough to touch the sky. She told me she wanted to open a boutique someday. I believed in her dreams more than I believed in my own. When I graduated, I turned down a scholarship abroad just to stay near her. I worked late nights, picked up shifts, and took side jobs. She said she didn't care about money, just loyalty. That was all I had to offer, loyalty, time, and whatever little I could give. I thought that would be enough. There were moments we had nothing but half a loaf of bread between us, and still, she would laugh, curl up beside me and say, "As long as we're together." I used to think those were the best days of my life. I remember the first time I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. Her college friends had invited her to a party, one of those luxury rooftop events. I showed up in my one good shirt and worn out shoes. She looked embarrassed, didn't hold my hand that night. Barely introduced me. That's when I first saw Kenneth. He was polished, arrogant, and reeked of money. His car was louder than his personality. And when he looked at Clarinda, it wasn't the way I looked at her. It was like she was a thing he could own. And she noticed. I don't blame her for wanting more. I blame her for pretending I was enough while her eyes were already looking past me. She started changing. Small things at first. Her tone when she talked to me, the time she came home, the way she began comparing everything I did to others. Kenneth began appearing more and more. "He's just helping with my boutique plans," she said. "He believes in my dream too. He believed in a version of her that came with price tags and polished glass. I believed in the girl who once cried when her cake collapsed on her birthday and said it was the best cake she ever had. But belief wasn't enough to compete with a man who could buy everything she'd ever dreamed of. One night I came home to find her packing her things. She didn't look at me, she just said, "I'm tired of struggling, Dwayne, I want more." And then she left. No argument, no begging, just silence, and the sound of the door clicking shut. Behind her, I could have broken. I almost did. But life has a strange way of choosing when to crush you and when to force you to rise. The day she left, I hit rock bottom. I lost my place to live. I was sleeping in the back room of the same coffee stall I once worked at. But something inside me didn't die. It sharpened. I remembered something my mother once told me before she passed. The people who leave you when you're at your worst are the ones who were never meant to stay when you're at your best. It was time to stop surviving. It was time to start building. Reached out to a man I once met in passing, a retired billionaire client from the stall who liked how I treated him with respect even when I didn't know who he was. He remembered me, said he liked my grit, offered me a small investment to get started with a project I'd once sketched in an old notebook, an AI-based logistics app that could optimize inventory delivery for small businesses. That little project turned into a startup. That startup turned into a global platform. And now? Now I sit on a portfolio valued at $1.2 billion. Now I own the building where Kenneth's company rents their office. Now I drive the cars Kenneth used to brag about. But the best part? I didn't need Clarinda to get there, and I sure as hell didn't need to prove anything to her. But fate has a sick sense of humor, because when I got the invitation to Clarinda's wedding, I laughed at first. Then I saw the groom's name, Kenneth Whitmore. Of course, the man she left me for, but the invitation wasn't sent by her, it was sent by Margaret. Margaret was Clarinda's best friend, and mine once. She helped me after the breakup, gave me food when I had nothing, lent me silence when I didn't want advice. We stayed in touch all these years. She knew what Clarinda had done, knew how far I'd come. She also knew Kenneth's company was collapsing quietly behind the scenes, and that Clarinda probably didn't even know yet. When I called Margaret to ask why she sent the invite, she said, "You deserve to see it, Dwayne. One last reminder of what you survived. Come dressed for the occasion." I almost said no, but something inside me stirred, and that something said, "Walk in. Don't say a word. Just let her see what she threw away." I walked into the wedding venue exactly 15 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The ballroom was extravagant. White orchids draped over golden archways. A string quartet played something elegant in the corner. Everyone was dressed to the nines, clinking champagne glasses, exchanging smiles, pretending wealth was happiness. I didn't need to pretend. People turned to glance as I entered. Some paused, eyes narrowing, wondering if I was on the guest list or owned the hotel. I ignored them. My eyes scanned only one face, Clarinda. She stood at the far end of the room, adjusting her veil with nervous hands. The same hands that once cupped my face after long shifts and said, "Even if we have nothing, we have each other." She didn't see me. Not yet. She looked dazzling. Diamond earrings, silk gown tailored to perfection, makeup done to look effortless. But beneath it all, her eyes were searching for assurance, for a man who hadn't arrived yet. Kenneth. He was late, and I knew why. His company had filed for emergency restructuring this morning. The board froze his accounts. The media didn't know yet, but they would by evening. Margaret made sure I saw the leaked report. I stepped closer. That's when Clarinda saw me. She froze. Her eyes widened in disbelief, like she couldn't register who she was looking at. She took a step forward. "Dwayne?" I gave her a polite nod. "Congratulations." She stared like I'd just shattered, the floor beneath her feet. What are you doing here?" Margaret appeared beside her. "I invited him." Clarinda turned sharply. "Why would you do that?" Margaret just sipped her champagne and said nothing. "I didn't think you'd come," Clarinda muttered, her voice lower now. "Neither did I said. "But you left a part of me back then. I figured I'd come and collect it." "Dwayne, this isn't the time." "No, you're right," I interrupted. "The time was 3 years ago, when you said a man without money had no place beside you. That was the time. But today's just the encore." She stepped closer. "You don't understand what it was like. You had nothing. I couldn't build my life on dreams." I gave a small, cold smile. "So you built it on Kenneth's wallet instead. That's not fair." "Fair?" I repeated. "Was it fair when you left without warning? When you chose him before I could even process what happened? You didn't just leave, Clarinda. You erased me." She lowered her gaze, swallowing hard. Don't worry, I added. You're not the only one who moved on. At that moment, someone called out behind us, Clarinda! It was Kenneth, rushed, breathless, and clearly shaken. His tie was crooked, his face pale. He wasn't the arrogant man I remembered. He was sweating bullets, and he avoided everyone's eyes as he approached. She rushed over to him. Where were you? Kenneth glanced around nervously. We need to talk. In front of everyone? She asked, confused. He leaned in. Clarinda, something happened. My accounts are frozen. There's an investigation. There's no money right now. Just stay calm until the ceremony ends. Her face lost all color. No money? She repeated. In disbelief. I'm fixing it. I just need time. She stepped back from him like he was diseased. You promised me security, and you promised him love, Margaret said quietly from behind her. Clarinda turned sharply again. You set me up. Margaret shook her head. No, you set yourself up. I just gave Dwayne a front row seat. Kenneth looked at me then. Recognition flickered across his face, then realization. You're Carter Holdings. You bought out my logistics firm last year. I gave him a single nod. His lips parted like he wanted to say something, but there was nothing to say. Not to me, not anymore. Clarinda looked between the two of us. You were poor. Was, I replied. She stared at me. And now? Now I'm the man you always wanted, I said, but too late for you. Her hand trembled as she reached for her bouquet, but her fingers missed. The flowers hit the floor with a soft thud. Kenneth turned away from her. I can't do this right now. She looked up. What are you saying? He didn't answer. He just walked out. The silence that followed was unbearable. And still, I said nothing. Clarinda turned back to me, voice trembling. Dwayne, I didn't know you'd become... You weren't supposed to, I replied. I wasn't building this for you. Tears welled in her eyes. But I was scared. I wanted a stable life. I gave you loyalty, I said. You traded it for a promise built on credit. I made a mistake. No, I whispered, stepping closer. You made a choice. I stood there, surrounded by flowers, chandeliers, and 100 silent witnesses, but all I could feel was the weight in my chest. Not anger, not pride, just a strange, hollow ache I hadn't expected to return. Clarinda stood in front of me, trembling. The woman I once loved with everything I had, now stripped of the fantasy she had chased so desperately. Her lips quivered, as if searching for the right apology, but nothing she said could undo what had already broken inside me. 3 years. I had buried every version of myself that once waited for her on cold nights. I had erased the man who believed love could survive on loyalty alone. I'd told myself I was over her, that I'd healed, that the success, the money, the recognition had closed every wound. So why did it still hurt to look at her? Dwayne. Her voice was barely a whisper now, more like a breath than a word. Do you still hate me? I looked into her eyes, those same eyes that once begged me not to give up, the ones that used to smile at my broken dreams and say, We'll make it. Back then, I thought they meant it. I don't hate you, I said, my voice steady but soft. That would mean I still felt something. Her lashes fluttered, and I could see it, the panic, the desperation. She was trying to piece me back together as the man she once knew. But he was gone. He died the day she let go of my hand and chose comfort over conviction. You're not angry? She asked, like that might be worse. I was, I admitted. I was furious for months, at you, at myself, at the world, but anger fades. It's what comes after that's worse. She tilted her head, confused. What comes after? Nothing, I said. That's what you left me with. Silence. Emptiness. I spent months shouting into the dark, hoping something would echo back, but it never did. That's when I learned what real pain is. She pressed a hand to her chest, breathing harder. I thought Kenneth could give me what you couldn't. And he did, I said quietly. He gave you a mansion, a wardrobe full of labels, and a circle of people who clapped when he spoke. But did he ever sit by your side at 3 a.m. when your nightmares woke you up? Did he ever spend his last dollar to buy your mother's meds? Did he ever skip dinner so you could eat? Her mouth opened, but no words came out. You didn't want a man, Clarinda, I said. You wanted a future already wrapped in gold. I was willing to build it brick by brick, but you couldn't wait. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks now. I regretted it, she whispered. Every night. I thought if I stayed with Kenneth long enough, the guilt would fade. But it never did. Not when he bought me diamonds. Not when he proposed. Not even today. I stayed silent. She stepped closer. I saw you on Forbes. I saw your interviews. I watched them, all. I wanted to reach out so many times, but I was ashamed. I told myself I'd ruined everything. But maybe there's still time. Time? I echoed. She nodded. Dwayne, I'm not asking for your success. I'm not asking for your company or your money or your forgiveness. Just your voice again. Can you speak to me like before? That's when I felt it. Not hope. Not desire. Pity. Not because she had fallen, but because she hadn't realized yet that what we had couldn't be resurrected. I've changed, she added quickly, almost stumbling over her words. I'm not that girl anymore. Neither am I said. You fell in love with a man who didn't have a penny to his name, but I'm not him anymore. And you're not the girl who stayed when times got hard. We've both changed, just in different directions. I'm sorry, she cried. Please, let me prove it. Let me earn it back. You can't earn what you threw away, I said gently. You made your choice, and I made mine. Her breath hitched. Is there someone else? I hesitated. A name floated in my mind. Margaret, the woman who never once asked me to become someone else. The one who believed in me when I had nothing, who offered friendship when I was at my lowest, and never once asked for anything in return. Clarinda saw the pause in my face. It's her, isn't it? She asked, her voice shaking. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That silence was enough. She took a step back, as if the weight of that truth physically pushed her. It was supposed to. Be us, she whispered. No, I replied. It was never supposed to be us. I just wanted it to be. She turned away, hugging herself, breaking piece by piece under the very pressure she once used to leave me behind. And for the first time in years, I felt light. Not because I had hurt her, but because the version of me that waited for her was finally gone. Dead and buried, just like the man she left in the rain. I turned to leave, not needing a final word. And as I walked out of the ballroom, I heard her collapse behind me. I didn't turn back. The rain was falling again. Just like the night she left, but this time I was dry. Inside my car, behind tinted glass with the world on mute. I could have driven home. Could have ended it all there, left the past behind me once and for all. But I didn't. I just sat there, watching the guests spill out of the venue in confusion. Some talking, some whispering, some pretending they hadn't witnessed the groom walk out and the bride fall apart. I thought that was the end of it, until my phone rang. It was Margaret. I answered immediately. I left. I know, she said, her voice quiet. But you need to come back. I blinked. What? Not for her, she added quickly. It's Kenneth. He didn't just walk out, he didn't leave alone. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. What are you talking about? He left with someone else, she said. Someone who's been at every meeting, every dinner Clarinda wasn't invited to. A woman named Chelsea. His assistant, apparently. They just got into a car together and kissed before pulling off. My jaw clenched, Margaret continued. And that's not all. Kenneth's company didn't just collapse because of bad investments. He's been laundering money through fake subsidiaries for nearly a year. Clarinda's name is on 3 of them, legally. As his fiancée, he made her sign documents saying they were wedding logistics vendors. My blood ran cold. She's involved without even knowing it, Margaret said. If this hits the media, she'll be dragged down with him. I stared through the windshield, silence pressing against my chest like a weight. The image of Clarinda crying in that ballroom was still fresh in my mind. I had thought that was her punishment, losing everything she left me for, but this was something else. What do you want me to do? I asked. I didn't call you because I think she deserves saving, Margaret said. I called because I know you, and you don't let people drown, even if they pushed you into the water first. I exhaled sharply, head falling back against the seat. She was right. That was who I used to be. Still might be. Do you know where she is now? I asked. She's still inside, Margaret replied. Alone. Kenneth's parents left in silence. The wedding planner's cleaning up. No one speaking to her. I'll be there in 10, I said, and hung up. I didn't know why I was going back. Maybe to make sure she didn't end up behind bars for loving the wrong man. Maybe because some part of me still remembered the girl who once held my hand in a tiny apartment and said, "We'll figure it out." Or maybe because the second twist in fate didn't hit her like a knife. It hit me. When I realized that even after everything, even after the betrayal, the heartbreak, the rain, I still didn't want to watch her fall alone. The ballroom was almost empty when I returned. The air had changed. The music had stopped. The flowers that once looked like luxury now felt like leftovers from a wedding that never happened. A staff member gave me a strange look as I walked past the cleanup crew, but no one stopped me. I moved through the silence like a ghost returning to the scene of his own death. She was still there. Clarinda sat on the edge of the stage where the couple was supposed to exchange vows. Her veil lay forgotten on the floor beside her. Her heels were off. Her hands were resting in her lap, like she no longer knew what to do with them. She didn't look up when I entered. For a second, I just watched her from a distance. Her back was slumped, her eyes vacant. This wasn't the proud, polished woman who had told me to get out of her life 3 years ago. This wasn't the girl who had picked Kenneth over me. This wasn't the dream-chasing Clarinda I used to know. This was someone who had fallen further than she ever thought possible. I stepped closer, my voice low. "You signed documents for him?" She flinched. Slowly, she turned to look at me. Her mascara was smudged. Her lipstick was gone. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "I didn't know what they were," she whispered. "He said they were just vendor contracts. For the venue, for catering, some for the gifts." "They were shell companies," I said. "They're tied to illegal transfers and wire fraud." Her lips parted, but no words came out. I sighed and took out my phone, scrolling through the files Margaret had sent me. "You're listed as co-signer on 3 of them. If the investigation moves forward, you'll be named. Maybe not as a primary suspect, but enough to be buried under public scrutiny." Her eyes widened with horror. "You think I'm guilty?" "Think you were stupid?" I replied. She blinked. "But I don't think you're evil." She looked down at her hands again. "I didn't know, I swear. I just wanted the wedding to go smoothly. He said all the planning was too much for me and that he'd handle it. He just needed my signature on a few things to make the process faster." I stared at her, unsure of what to feel. She had once left me because I was too poor to offer security, and now she had almost signed her future away trying to secure a marriage built on lies. Clarinda shook her head slowly. "I've been a fool, haven't I?" I didn't answer. She laughed under her breath, hollow and bitter. "This morning I thought today would be the happiest day of my life. I thought I'd finally won. I had the ring, the venue, the man, the status. I thought I'd beaten you, that I'd proven something." "And now?" I asked. Her shoulders dropped. "Now I don't know who I am." Silence stretched between us. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. her voice cracking. I wouldn't forgive me either, but you came back. You didn't have to, but you did. Why? I'm not here for you, I replied. I'm here for the version of you who didn't know better. The girl who used to believe in dreams. The one who got lost somewhere in the middle of all this. She stared at me for a long time. Her eyes were glassy. And that version of me? Is she still somewhere in here? I don't know, I said honestly. That's for you to figure out. I don't have anyone left, she said. Kenneth's gone, my family's ashamed. Everyone thinks I planned this with him. They think I was in on it. You still have one option, I said. What? You clear your name. You cooperate with the authorities. You give them everything you have on Kenneth. She shook her head. He'll come after me. He won't, I said. Because I won't let him. She looked at me, confused. Why would you help me? I'm not doing this for you, I said again. I'm doing this because if I walk away now, I'll regret it later. And I've spent too many years living in regret. Clarinda's lip trembled. I don't deserve your kindness. No, I said. You don't. She lowered her head and sobbed quietly. I'll have my lawyer reach out, I added. You'll need someone who can navigate the fallout and protect you. Why are you really doing this, Dwayne? She asked suddenly. Is it guilt? Pity? Revenge? It's peace, I said. Helping you now doesn't undo what you did. It just makes sure your mistake doesn't ruin anyone else's life. Clarinda stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. I loved you, she said. More than I ever admitted. I know, I replied. But it wasn't enough. Love isn't just what you feel when things are good. It's what you choose when things fall apart. You chose Kenneth. I chose fear, she corrected herself. I nodded. And it cost you everything. She gave a sad smile. Do you ever think about what would have happened if I'd stayed? Sometimes, I admitted. But then I remember I wouldn't be who I am today if you had. And Margaret? She asked. Is she important to you? I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. Clarinda nodded, her voice barely audible. Then I hope you don't make the same mistake I did. I hope you choose her. Fully. I stared at her for a moment. Then I turned. To leave. Dwayne, she called softly. Thank you for not letting me drown. I didn't look back. Swim. That was all I said. As I stepped out into the cold air, Margaret was waiting by the car. She looked at me, quiet, unreadable. You helped her, didn't you? I nodded. She reached into her coat pocket and handed me something. A box. Inside was a ring. You might want to hold on to this, she said, in case you ever want to ask someone a better question. I looked up at her. Are you saying yes in advance? I'm saying, she replied with a soft smile. You've already given me everything I ever needed. Loyalty, respect, and time. And love? That's the easiest part, she said. I've had that since the day you gave up on chasing. Someone who didn't see your worth. I took her hand gently and kissed her fingers. I didn't just build an empire after Clarinda left, I whispered. I built space in my life for the right person. And now? Margaret asked. Now, I said, holding her hand tighter. I don't plan to let go. 2 weeks later, the headlines broke. Corporate groom under fraud investigation. Wedding crashed by reality. Kenneth Whitmore's collapse brings down dozens of fake companies. Ex-fiancée Clarinda Hahn cooperates with federal investigation. Anonymous billionaire reportedly backed legal protection for key witness. No one knew it was me, and I preferred it that way. I watched the chaos from the sidelines, sipping espresso on the balcony of my penthouse. The skyline of the city stretched endlessly before me, but all I could think about was how small the world had become. Clarinda had disappeared from the public eye. Her name was still tangled in whispers and assumptions, but my team made sure she had the legal support she needed. She stayed quiet, humble, and for the first time in years, honest. She did her part. She testified. She exposed the shell companies. She surrendered every document Kenneth had forced her to sign. It was her pen that closed the vault on Kenneth's empire, and the one that helped prosecutors build a case airtight enough to bury him. He was arrested in Monaco trying to board a yacht. They froze his assets. Everything he used to seduce her, his suits, his cars, his status, were now listed in criminal investigations. He tried to throw her under the bus. He failed, and I made sure of it. Because before they could drag Clarinda into court, I handed over a folder. Inside were recordings, emails, receipts, things I'd had my tech team collect over the last 3 years while I watched Kenneth's empire swell. I had no idea back then that it would all lead to this. I was only protecting myself from a man who once tried to humiliate me in front of Clarinda during a business pitch. But fate has a sharp memory. In the end, I didn't need to raise my voice, throw a punch, or destroy his reputation with a speech. Just watched him destroy himself, and that perhaps is the purest revenge. But what mattered more than revenge was peace. The day Clarinda gave her final statement to the investigators, she walked out of the courthouse wearing no makeup, no jewelry, and not a single trace of her former life. She saw me waiting by my car and approached with careful steps. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Not just for the help, for not turning your back." I nodded. "I told you I wasn't doing it for you." "I know," she said, "but you still did it." We stood in silence for a moment. Then she looked at me one last time, eyes sincere. "Margaret's lucky," she said. "Don't let her go." And just like that, she turned and walked away. No tears, no breakdown, just silence and closure. That was the last time I saw her. I don't hate her. I don't love her. I don't carry her name in my chest anymore. She was a chapter, painful, loud, unforgettable. But not the ending. The ending belonged to someone else. Margaret. A week later, I took her to the street where I used to sell coffee during college. The stall was gone now, replaced by a trendy bakery with overpriced croissants. But the corner still smelled like old dreams and new beginnings. I got down on one knee with a ring I'd designed myself, a custom diamond embedded into the simplest band. "No cameras," I said. "No paparazzi, no PR headlines. Just you, me, and the same street where I learned what it meant to hope." Margaret laughed softly. "This is where you want to propose?" "This is where I remembered who I was," I said, "and who I wanted to become." She wiped a tear from her cheek and nodded. Then yes, we got married in a quiet ceremony by the sea. No media, no spectacle, just vows that came from the heart, and a promise we both knew we'd keep. Years passed, we traveled, built schools in underfunded districts, invested in startups that reminded me of the boy I used to be. Margaret opened a design studio for underprivileged women. I backed a foundation that helped young men rebuild after betrayal and bankruptcy. We built something real. One night, while we were watching the sunset on a quiet beach, she turned to me and said, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Clarinda had stayed?" I looked at her, smiled, and replied, "No. Why not? Because if she had, I would have built a house with bricks made from guilt. I would have walked on eggshells, always trying to prove myself. That's not love. That's survival." Margaret reached over and laced her fingers through mine. "And this is life," I said, "the one I was meant to live." And just when I thought I'd found every piece of peace possible, something even better arrived. Our daughter, born on a rainy night, just like the one I was left in years ago. But this time, I wasn't standing alone, drenched and forgotten. I was holding my daughter in my arms, wrapped in warmth, with Margaret smiling through tears beside me. I named her Hope. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted her to grow up knowing it never leaves, even when the world does. And as I looked out the hospital window that night, rain tapping gently against the glass, I thought back to that old version of me. The man in the cold, holding a cheap bouquet, Watching the woman he loved walk away, I wanted to tell him something. You'll survive this. Not just survive, rise. And one day, she'll stand in front of you, broken and sorry, and you won't even need to raise your voice. Because silence will be the loudest answer.